So today I'm going to tell the story of when I called a Muslim kid a terrorist. Now, let me first say that this is not something that happened recently as an adult. It's not something that I ever say. Anything that is racist or hateful, bigoted towards a different racial group. It's not the way that I operate today. Even back then when it happened, it wasn't really something that I actually believed. Like, I didn't actually hate this person for being Muslim, for being Arab. It was just me being a kid and me being upset, and I ended up lashing out at him, and it turned into a whole thing. I ended up getting suspended from school, and they were threatening expulsion and me not graduating. Like, it was a whole thing. So let's start from the beginning. Me and this kid, his name was Yusuf. We met in pre-K, and we hit it off pretty much from the beginning. We were really good friends, and we ended up in pretty much every class together from pre-K to the fifth grade. So from when we were 4 years old to 11 years old. So almost like pretty much our entire childhood we spent together, and we grew pretty close over the years. I had him at all my birthday parties. I've had him over at my house plenty of times, and I considered him one of my best friends in school, even up until the fifth grade. So I remember there was a day in class where our fifth grade teacher gave us a lesson on terrorism and, about 9/11 and all these different things that were happening. And I remember after that lesson finished, there were a whole bunch of kids pretty much teasing and making fun of Yusuf, calling him a terrorist and saying all of these like awful things, but they were all calling him terrorist. Like almost the entire class said Yusuf is a terrorist and laughing, and he was like really upset about. Obviously, he was really upset about it. I mean, growing up as a Muslim in the 2000s, it was a very difficult thing. So to hear that, was very hurtful, I'm sure. But I wasn't participating in it at first. I didn't I felt really bad for him, actually. I was actually defending him. I was like, yeah, no, don't call him a terrorist. He is a really good kid, and he doesn't deserve that. Um, but what ended up happening later in the day, so we were in the cafeteria during lunch, me, Yusuf, and a bunch of different kids that we were all part of the same friend group pretty much. So we all sat together during lunch, and we all, enjoyed each other's company. We always play in the schoolyard and do all these things together. It was like probably about like 6 or 7 of us, like, boys that were all like, we were all very close. Um, so what happened was, so like those cafeteria tables, like those really long tables that you sit down but you're kind of like squished next to other people, like like it's pretty like picnic table pretty much, but it's like a long table in the school cafeteria. So we'd always sit together during lunch. But one day there was only like everyone else was sitting, all of our other friends were sitting down, but the two of us, me and Yusuf, went to sit, and we noticed that there was only one seat left on the cafeteria table. So we both like rushed to get that last seat because we didn't want to sit next to someone else that like to other people that we didn't know or weren't really close with. Like we wanted to sit with our friends, right? So that one seat, we were like fighting for it. I got in there first, like right before he was able to, but we were kind of like squishing together trying to fight for that seat, and we were struggling for it. So in order to get me off the seat, he decided, okay, I'm just gonna pick him up and throw him to the ground, and that shit hurt. And so my ass was on the floor. So I was just red. I was just angry in that moment. So I said, you know what, Yusuf? Maybe you really are a terrorist. And that was like, I didn't even realize like the repercussions of saying that, and how that really must have made him felt. I mean, I was trying in the moment to hurt him and make him feel bad, obviously, because he did just like assault me pretty much. But I didn't really think. I was 11 years old, and I wasn't really, I didn't really, I guess you could say I wasn't racially sensitive, and I didn't think about, what that would mean to that person to say stuff like that. But I was like, you know what? I was defending this kid all day because everyone else was calling him a terrorist. But now that he's actually like assaulting me and shoving me to the floor, and we never had a problem before, by the way. We were friends for 7 years at that point, and nothing like that had ever happened. We never had any issues with each other at all. But just in that one moment, so I snapped, and I said that, and I also didn't really think anything was going to happen. I was going to get in trouble because, like I said, everybody else was in on that whole thing, on calling him a terrorist. But Shit went down pretty quick. Oh, it definitely did. So I remember what happened was, he pretty much threatened, like he told me like, oh, I'm gonna tell the principal that you said that, and you are gonna get in a lot of trouble. And I was like, oh shit. So I kind of knew that I was gonna get sent to the office. It was like during rehearsal for graduation, like in the auditorium, because that's where our graduation was, in the school auditorium, and graduation was only like a few weeks away at that point. So during rehearsal, I like faked an illness. I pretended to be sick. It was on a Friday, so that because I knew I was about to get sent to the office, so I got, so I pretty much got my mom to pick me up. I pretended to be sick so I can go home and kind of just survive for 3 more days before Monday, so I wouldn't get in trouble until then. So when I came back to school on Monday, the fifth grade teacher pulled me aside, like at the beginning of class, saying like, "Did you call Yusuf a terrorist?" And I'm like, yes, I did, but there was a lot more context to it. He did put his hands on me, and I did kind of snap, and plus everyone else was calling him one, so I was the only one that was even getting in trouble for it. And like I think honestly, the context of what how I said it was a lot different, even though it wasn't any better. Really, like it was still fucked up. And I honestly think the reason why he reported me and he singled me out so much is because me calling him one, I think hurt the most out of everyone else because, you know, like I said, we had a lot of history together and we were like really close friends. So for me to say that, I think really set him off. So that's why he specifically reported me and nobody else, even though like of the class of 30 kids, there were like at least 20 of them that were saying that shit to him. So yeah, I ended up getting sent to the first it was the assistant principal's office, and then it was the principal's office, and it was like a whole thing. I had to write down a statement about what happened, and I said it truthfully. What happened is that he put his hands on me. He pretty much assaulted me, and so then I said I admitted that I said it. I never once denied calling him a terrorist. So at least there was a lot of integrity. You know, whether, you know, as much of a messed up thing it was to say and do, I never once denied that I did it. So that's one thing that looking back on that I am proud of. Because I also didn't think that I really was in the wrong, like at the time. Like I didn't necessarily realize like the true magnitude of calling a Muslim person a terrorist. You know, in the context of like the aftermath of 9/11 and all the discrimination that was happening against Muslims, like I didn't really think about it because it never affected me in my life, right? So I gave my written statement, and then there were other kids that were witnesses, so our friends that pretty much stayed neutral. They didn't want to like throw me under the bus. They didn't want to throw Yusuf under the bus. So they kind of like played neutral, like they were like, but they were also like they left out the detail of him putting his hands on me and throwing me on the floor. That part was conveniently left out because they didn't want to get him in trouble. But I guess because they knew that I said that I wasn't denying that I called him a terrorist, that it was okay for them to say, yeah, I heard him say that. So I ended up getting in a lot of trouble. I was suspended for a week. Actually, I wasn't suspended from class, but I got a week of detention. That's actually what it was. But my mom actually took my side. So at first, she picked me up from school the day of, on that Monday, after school, because my father got a call from the school at his job saying that your son called a Muslim person a terrorist. And so then he called my mother, and she was laughing because it was, my father had like a weird sense of humor. Like it's really hard to describe, but like it sounds like something that he would like that would come out of his mouth as a joke and not something serious. But then he was like, "Oh no, this is serious. This is an actual thing that happened, and our son is in a lot of deep shit right now." So she was fucking furious. She's like, "You called Yusuf a terrorist? What the fuck is wrong with you?" So then I explained. I'm like, "Yes, I did call him a terrorist. I'm not denying it, but here's what happened." So I explained, you know, the like everything that happened that day, and she immediately took my side because of two things. One, she's like, I mean, you did stand up for yourself, like, even though it was, like, a messed up thing to call him a terrorist, it was in reaction to something else that he did. He like, attacked you. Like, the fact that you didn't, like, fight him back and put your hands on him, like, that was honestly probably a better thing to call him a terrorist than to actually, like, assault him back and, like, beat like, to get into a fist fight. So that was one thing, and the other thing was the fact that I was being singled out, you know, because everyone else was calling him one, and I only called him one when he, you know, did what he did to me. So she ended up, siding with me, and also just because the fact that she's my mom, and parents side with their children, uh, almost all the time. But I think honestly, if she thought that I was truly like ill intended, like that I really intended to hurt this person and to, to be like hateful, that she would not have had my back. I can say that with confidence. But yeah, my mom was furious at the school because they threw me under the bus. They singled me out among everybody else, and I ended up getting a week of detention. So during lunch, I was supposed to report to detention. My mom picked me up during lunch and brought me back after lunch. She took me to like Burger King and McDonald's, and we just went out and had fun and like just like during that whole week. And she's like, "What are you guys gonna do? Graduation's in a few weeks. Like, what are you gonna do?" So they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna like." Like they were threatening to take it even further than that, to like, suspend me and do all these things, but nothing ever really came out of it. And then, yeah, so I was allowed to go to graduation and all that stuff, but my family ended up boycotting the graduation because of me getting in trouble with the school. So I ended up not attending my fifth grade graduation. I kept going to all the rehearsals. It was pretty awkward because I knew, like the weeks leading up to that I was not going to attend, but I was still doing rehearsals, and it was just a weird experience. We ended up going to like a restaurant, like a seafood restaurant or something, and we just like hung out as a family. I didn't participate in the graduation at all. And I remember the last day of school, me and Yusuf had a little bit of interaction, and we were actually cool. Like, so it was like, after that incident happened, he kind of just got over it, and we were cool again. And I got over that whole thing because I really think, honestly, like when his mother heard it too, I think that's what really escalated because I'm sure she's dealt with, or like their whole family dealt with discrimination, and to hear it from one of his close friends calling him that, I think she just like went ballistic. So, looking back at it, I kind of understand where all the sides were coming from. So I don't have any ill will towards anybody, obviously. I mean, I obviously had my own part to play in it as well. I was definitely not 100% innocent, but yeah, we ended up signing each other's yearbooks and shit, and we were all cool and everything. We didn't really talk to each other much after fifth grade graduation because we went to different middle schools and different high schools and different colleges, so we kind of just veered apart. But we ended things on good terms. There was no like continued hostility between us, so that was a good thing. um but yeah, that was just an experience that stands out in my life, especially because it was the aftermath. My grandmother just passed away a few weeks before, so there was a lot of like, a lot of pain, depression, trauma, like from that experience, and the whole family was just falling apart right before my very eyes because my grandmother was the person that really held the entire family together. So when she was gone, the whole family was pretty much gone. Even though they weren't dead, they weren't really part of my life anymore. So I was dealing with all these things, and that moment when my grandmother passed away on May 2nd, 2009, that date was the end of my childhood because it just really changed a whole lot of things in my life for the worse. And, I really, a part of me died on that day because I really loved my grandmother. So, yeah, dealing with that and then the whole getting in trouble with the school and the terrorist thing, like those two things going together, I think was really what made the situation so much worse than it already would have been otherwise. But yeah, all I will say is to any young people out there, if someone hurts you or does something to you, and especially if you're white and they're a racial minority, don't use racial insults against them to try to hurt them because it's just a fucked up thing to do. It doesn't really, you're not going to feel better about it afterwards, and it's just it's going to hurt the person so much more than you could possibly imagine because you can't imagine what it's like to go through that, to experience discrimination on almost a daily basis, depending. So yeah, definitely don't do that. I mean, I think especially me growing up in school, like especially as a teenager, people are just so mean to each other, so much bullying, so much fucked up shit. People just like thriving off of bringing others down, and that's just not a good mentality to have. Like if I could like go back, like as an adult, if I could change the way I carried myself and behaved during my days in school, if someone said something fucked up to me, did something fucked up to me, I would just turn the other cheek, honestly, and just ignore that person and be like, you know what, fuck you. You're a piece of shit. You're not worth my time or energy. And I could promise you that gets to them more than anything else you can do. Like, you just not acknowledging them and just not even giving them the light, like just like even giving them the indication that you're affecting them at all, like that they're affecting you rather. You know, that's really that's really the way you should do it. Like, I know, like, some people may say it's a little bit too pacifistic. Like, if someone punches you, you punch them right back, but it really doesn't do anything. It doesn't. At the end of the day, it's not gonna make you a better person. It's not going to improve any situation. Like, you're just better off just being like, whatever. Like, learn from that experience if someone's being shitty to you, and, you know, all that kind of shit. But, like, you know, just try to move past it. Try to be peaceful and diplomatic. You know, that's the way that I kind of have evolved into handling certain situations. Like, at work, someone was yelling at my face and threatening to fight me a couple of years ago, and I was just, you know, I didn't escalate things further, because it would have ended up in a fight and we would have both gotten fired. You know, there are consequences for these things, and you have to think about that as well. Obviously, if someone's trying to hurt someone you love, completely different ball game. Like, if someone's trying to hurt your wife or your kid, obviously, fucking beat the shit out of them, or maybe even worse, right? But if we're talking about school kid fucking drama bullshit, it's never worth it.